Hi folks, Matt here from Ask the Yard podcast, joined again by James, and today we're going to be taking questions from 3 readers, so stick around and stay tuned and we'll get onto that in just a moment. Morning, James.
Morning.
How are we doing?
Good.
Good. Remember, I said we're going to be looking at the camera, not the screen. Okay. So there's a letter coming out, or there's an email coming out for those of you that are on our email list. There is an email coming out, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. The amount of stick that I've had for getting my 10-year-old son involved in our marketing is unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. I think there's real value in exposing them to an entrepreneurial mindset and business, rather than being stuck in school learning about how many prime ministers Australia's had in the last 50 years. What do you think?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully he'll appreciate it in years to come. So, James, are you ready? We've got three questions. We've got 3 questions from listeners today. So, over to James. The first question is
from Sonu in Sonu. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Sonu
in London. Sonu
says,
quick question about my build. It is a large garden room which is adjacent to the boundary walls of neighbours and their gardens. Please see the attached picture of the tree in question and plans for the outhouse where the tree will be. The planning department came out to have a look and are concerned about footings, foundations, possibly damaging the roots from neighbouring gardens. Is there anything I can suggest in order to reduce the risk of
this? Yeah, that means piled or raft foundations
away from the tree roots in a single-storey flat roof build. Many thanks in advance.
In advance. Okay, Sonu. So, so you've got a large garden room adjacent to the boundary wall of the neighbours in their garden. So I'm guessing this needs full planning consent. A lot will depend on the height of the building and the distance from the walls. But I'm not a planning consultant. I have seen the tree. I have seen the photos on this because this was through a Facebook group. So I have actually seen the photos on this one. Key here is the fact that the planning department has come out to have a look and they're concerned about our footings, foundations, possibly damaging tree roots for the neighbouring gardens. So what Sonu has done here is they've jumped straight to looking at the technical solution, and they're talking about piled or raft foundations. So this is where the floor level of the building is set on piles, sitting up above ground level. A raft can then be cast, and the building can be constructed off of that, meaning there's minimal impact to any potential tree roots below the ground. However, I think we're jumping the gun here a bit. What do you think they should have first, James? What's the first
planning application?
No, what's the first thing to do? Come on, it's literally our moniker, isn't it?
Planning back on track?
Well, okay, close. I think probably what you're going to need, Sonu, is you're going to need a tree survey first. So if you have a quick Google, you should be able to find a arboricultural consultancy within your local area, and I would get an ARB consultant involved. What they will do is they'll come out and do a tree survey, which is the bit on site. So what they're going to be doing there is they'll be taking measurements of the trees, both above ground and below ground, to work out where the root protection areas are, and that's what the local planning authority are going to want to see. Once we've got those measurements, that will be applied to a plan, and we can see whether your outbuilding affects them. Now, if the impact is minimal, if you're only maybe half a metre into the root protection area, then what we could do is we could just move the building a little bit out of the root protection area, and then you're not going to have any tree issues, and you can use conventional foundations. If that's not possible, then it may be that you need to start looking at helical piles or screw piles or something like that. If it's an outbuilding, then it's not going to need super substantial foundations. So hopefully that helps. Start with a tree survey. You basically need something called a tree constraints plan, so you can cross-reference your proposed outbuilding with the actual with the actual trees to see whether there's any issue. What I would say is, because the trees are off-site and they're not your trees, the British Standard does allow us to estimate stem diameters if we need to, based on experience, because sometimes people don't have the best of relationships with their neighbours. So hopefully that helps. Over to James. Who's next? What's next? Tom? Where's Tom from?
Bristol. We have submitted a full planning application for a proposed new dwelling. Outline planning has previously been granted, with the matters reserved. This site within our
conservation
area. There are no existing TPOs within the immediate vicinity. The attached photos show all of the trees which we are proposing to remove. There are approx 12 trees, many of
poplar. It's a type of tree
species which we would like to remove to make a way for drainage field and new orchard of 9 fruit trees. The ecology report touches on the existing trees as being of a low
ecological
value. However, this is likely to suffice.
Yeah, however, is this likely to suffice?
Or are we very likely to reacquire a tree survey?
Yeah.
Is it worth having a tree survey undertaken now, just in case it is asked for later, or should we provide a tree survey regardless of it being requested, and there is no harm in doing so? Should we opt for a basic BS 5837
2012
tree survey, a more detailed arboricultural impact assessment, or other?
Good job. I should just say that James has got this stinking cough and cold that's going around. So, so Tom in Bristol has submitted this full planning application for a proposed new dwelling. They do have outline. Planning in place. The site is within a conservation area. There are no existing TPOs within the immediate vicinity, and there's 12 trees that they would like to remove to make way for a drainage field. So it looks to me like the trees have been mentioned within the ecology report, but they've had no tree reports done. Tom is asking whether he's likely to require a tree survey. Interestingly, do you know what the tree officer's name is in Bristol? It's actually Tom. So that's a bit weird. Or it was. I don't know if it still is, but it was a few months ago. He says, is it worth having a tree survey undertaken now, just in case it's asked for later, or should they provide it? So it looks to me like Tom's got a little bit of knowledge, and sometimes a little bit of knowledge could be a dangerous thing. So let's start off with the conservation area. So any tree within a conservation area that is bigger or has a stem diameter greater than 75 millimetres at breast height is given a basic level of protection. And basically what that means is that outside of a planning application, if you want to do any work to that tree or remove that tree, you basically submit an application to the local planning authority, and they have X amount of time to either object or put a TPO on. You don't need their permission, so to speak. Some will come back and say that they specifically give you permission, and others just won't reply at all. And then after, I think it's the 6 weeks, the consultation period, you can then just crack on. So that's that issue boxed off. The ecology report touches on the existing trees as being a low ecological value. So what they'll be looking at there is for bird nesting potential. They'll be looking at the tree's quality for potential roosting features for bats and things like that. Poplars tend to, depending on the species, tend to be very fast growing. They have very little features on them. I've seen squirrel drays in poplar trees, but not a lot else, to be honest, and they also move around a lot in the wind, which tends to mean that apart from corvids like crows, you tend not to get an awful lot of birds nesting in them either. I'll wait for all the comments on that one, but that's my experience. If you are if you're wanting to remove trees, then it's almost certain, I can say with certainty actually, that this local planning authority is going to require a tree survey. So I think you need that now. You need it up front. A bit like Sonu, you basically need the tree survey, which is the bit where the guy comes out to site, and then you're going to need the arboricultural impact assessment, which is where they cross-reference it with the proposals. If you want to remove trees, that will be highlighted within the report, and depending on the quality of those trees will depend on what will be required in terms of mitigation planting, but it is highly likely the trees will need replacing on a 2-for-1 basis. So it may be that if you're taking out 12 big trees and planting 9 fruit trees, that's not going to be enough. You'll probably have to put some more trees in than that to comply with local planning guidance. So hopefully that helps Tom a little bit. And there's some big words in here, James. This is a confusing one. Are you feeling up for it, or do I need to jump into this one?
I'll try it.
Okay. So we don't know who this is from. And the reason we don't know who this is from is because they say, and I'll read the first bit, they say, hello, hypothetical-ish question, and then James can take over.
If a planning application outcome is yet to be decided on a backland development and you get wind that a TPO is going to be placed on 2 fruit trees, guarded B and C, these trees will need to be removed for the latest plans to be approved, or at least for it to go ahead. Previous plans were refused due to root protection areas of other trees. This latest plan is C, is our last option. Is it too late to remove the trees, as I feel this action has only been taken in an attempt to boycott
yeah,
our last option? I may add there are several other trees, 10 plus, which would be granted A and B quality. These are unaffected by the plan, which only leads to believe they have inconsistently targeted the trees that affect final option / plan build.
That's my watch talking. Go on. Amenity value
Is the reason
cited
for optional TPO, and the council tree officer has not visited the site. A full plan has been conducted by an independent arboriculturalist that has individual thinks it's ridiculous that a TPO would be placed on these trees.
Okay, and then this chap gives us 3 options. Option 1.
Would you cut the trees down and submit a revised,
yeah.
plan? 2. Withdraw an application, remove the trees, and resubmit. 3. If the TPOs get signed off,
what would our options be?
What would our option?
Good job. Good job. Well, it's because this has been taken from a Facebook group. So this is people writing as they speak, which is why it's difficult to read back. So whoever this is has given us a hypothetical-ish question, and then they've given us an awful lot of information. So it's backland development or infill development. There are obviously some fruit trees in this infill development area. They've had a tree survey and an impact assessment carried out, and the local authority have pushed back due to the root protection area of other trees. And then the guy's going on to say, is it too late to remove the trees? Because that's our only option, and there is the potential for a tree preservation order to be put on these fruit trees. And then he comes up with 3 options, or she comes up with 3 options. Option 1: would you cut down the trees and submit a revised tree plan? No. If the local planning authority has already got wind of those trees, or knows those trees are there, and that information is now also in the public domain, if you go ahead and cut those trees down, you're just going to damage your chances of ever getting your planning application through. Far better to work with the local authority if you possibly can. Option 2: withdraw application, remove trees and resubmit. No, for the same reason as number 1. I don't think you want to be felling any trees. And the third question: if the TPO gets signed off, what would our options be? Essentially what happens is a notice will be put out that they're thinking of putting a tree preservation order on these trees. you'll be notified of that if they're within the curtilage of your property at the moment, or there'll be a notice at site, or there'll also be a notice go out on the planning portal that they're thinking of putting a TPO on there. They'll have to state the reasons for that, and there'll be a consultation period. Stop kicking. If the TPO is confirmed, then it would then be a criminal offence essentially to cut those trees down. However, you can object to a TPO, and TPOs do get objected to fairly regularly and successfully. For a tree preservation order to be put in place, it basically, there's another podcast on this somewhere, I'll link it in the show notes, but essentially the tree's got to have significant amenity value, significant arboricultural value, significant landscape value, and I think your other tree consultant has hinted at this, that if the trees are located in a back garden, it's probably highly unlikely, if they're fruit trees, that they've got much in the way of amenity value, because nobody else can access the land. They might have some landscape value. They're also probably not of particularly high arboricultural value. So I would not go in and fell trees outside of a planning application. I think that's just, you're asking for trouble. I would be looking at working with your arboricultural consultant, show those trees as being removed on the approved plans, show mitigation planting, and go in from there. But yeah, I think if you do just go and fell them, you're just going to damage your chances of ever getting planning consent. So that's that. We've had those 3 questions. I hope there's some useful information in there for any of you guys. James, where do people go if they want to get more information?
Rover Group.
Well, you could do.
Ask the Arb.
You could. There are so in this Ask the Arb podcast series, we address a number of points. We're going to go back through those over the next few months and readdress some of those points. But yeah, if you want some help, reach out to us. Send us an email to help@rover-group.co.uk. You can get an instant quote on our website, which is www.go-rover.co.uk. That's go-rover.co.uk. We've also I'll link them in the show notes. We've also got a couple of quizzes that you can put your projects through as well. That's been developed by our experts this end. And that means that you can find out exactly where your project sits at the moment, and whether there's anything else that you need to do to get your project back on track. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, James. James will be staying away from the podcast for a little while now, because I don't want to get in trouble with anybody else. And maybe we'll have another Q&A in a month's time or something.
Everyone go and get the planning application book, because at the back there's my face on it.
Oh, right, okay. That's the second time you've mentioned that.
Yeah.
All right. It's a bit vain, is James. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful, people, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye. Cheers now. Bye.